It's a nice, warm fall day here in the village of Boys Town, and part of our History Week. We wanted to incorporate the most historic structure in the village of Boys Town, which is this home was built for Father Flanagan back in the 1920s. He lived here from 1927 to 1941, and it's situated in the older part of our village. The original property Father Flanagan purchased in 1921. The movie Boys Town was filmed right here in front of this location, and many of our children who come to live with us today still go through the home, and it's open for visitors to come and visit. And right in front of the home, we have this special statue of Father Flanagan. This statue was a gift from our Alumni Association, and its twin statue is over in Ireland, Father Flanagan's hometown of Ballymo, Ireland. And we love this statue because it represents Father Flanagan standing in front of his historic home. And surrounding it on the ground, there are pavers, and these pavers were all dedicated from our alumni to Father Flanagan. You'll see alumni saying, "Thank you, Father Flanagan, for saving them and allowing them to come live here at Boys Town," and others just saying how thankful they are to have been here. And there are men and girls from all different eras at Boys Town's history are represented in these pavers. And this is just dedicated just to them. And you can see they go back some to the 20s, from the 1950s, some from even 1918. We have some of the earliest kids here represented too in these special pavers here in front of the house. And then we have smaller pavers too. And around the house, we actually have the gardens of Boys Town. And we have Father Flanagan's very, very famous quote, "The work will continue." That was, he said, as he got older in life, representing Boys Town would continue on even when he was not with us anymore. And on the other side too, we talk about the artist, Mr. Fred Hoppy, who created the statue, and it was unveiled by Father Val Peter back in 2002 here in the village of Boys Town. We actually have a little time capsule inside with pictures of all our different kids who've lived at Boys Town up to 2002 when they were here in the village of Boys Town. And what we're going to do right now is go into the home, and we'll begin our tour, and we'll walk through the rooms and see how Father Flanagan lived here back in the 1920s. And as we come by, we can see our rose gardens here, our flowers. We had a Eagle Scout come, and one day his project was to recreate the flowers that around Father Flanagan's home back in 1920s and 1930s when he lived here. And a lot of these are based on Father's writings of this is the flowers he had at his home back in Ireland as a child. And this home is a large red brick home. It's done what they call in a Georgian style home. And Father Flanagan lived here with his sister, Miss Nellie, his housekeeper, and his nephew Patrick Norton. And we just walked in the front door of the house. And we're in the entryway, and we're going to come into the living room of the house here. And this is where Father Flanagan would spend his evenings. In the home, when you walk inside, we picked the time period 1929. So we have some of the furnishings that represent that time period within the house. Father Flanagan had a large fireplace here. He loved it in the wintertime. He could sit by the fireplace and be warm. Then in the summer, they'd open all the doors and windows and let the breeze come in. We have some special artifacts in this room. We have this painting that Father Flanagan created. It was a donation to Father Flanagan. It's called The Three Homeless Children, and it represents children on the streets. And it was donated by a gentleman from San Francisco who had a shipping corporation. Father Flanagan loved artwork, and he wanted paintings for the children. He actually was going to build an art museum at one point. So this painting was one of the special paintings that was displayed here on campus, and now we have it up here at his historic home. And within the home, too, we have one of our special desks. This is a desk that was made by the kids back in the 1930s. The boys worked in woodworking courses. We have 3 of these special desks that have survived. We have this one that we have displayed in this room, and then we're going to eventually see Father Flanagan's special desk. And within the house, too, we're lucky we have some pictures of Father. We don't have too many, but we have a few. We have a picture of Father Flanagan standing by the fireplace you just saw here in the house, which is, again, very rare. And then we have a picture of him out in the front steps. We just came in with his big brother, Patrick Flanagan. And then above it on the wall is a picture of Patrick Flanagan when he first came to America in about 1908. He would have been about 25, 26 years old when he came here. And you can see within the house we have this yellow color. This is the original color. We had the National Park Service do a study. They got down to the original color, and it was this color yellow. So you're going to see it throughout the main room of the house from the 1920s. And you'll notice too, we have some little things going on in the house, some buckets or things like any 100-year-old home. We're having it restored. So there's some restoration projects going on right now. We're getting ready for Christmas time because we decorate for Irish Christmas, and so we're trying to get it all done and clean and ready to go. As you leave the living room and the entry hall, you come into Father's reception room. So back in the 20s and 30s, if you would come to visit Father, you would be brought into this reception room. And in here we have some original pieces of furniture that belong to Father Flanagan. We have some items on the table that were made by the kids in woodworking class. Some of the wooden boxes from the 1920s, 1930s. All of them are original. The kids designed each one to be individually. That's how Father Flanagan treated the children. Same thing with the ceramics. Everything is individualized for the children. And then we have a special painting in this room. This painting was Father Flanagan saw this in the office of a college president back east, and he loved the story of a child with his parents before a judge getting judgment. So Father Flanagan requested if he could have a copy. So a nun actually painted this painting, and she made an extra copy for Father Flanagan. And then for many years it's hung here on campus in different buildings, and we brought it up here to the Father Flanagan house in 1980s for safekeeping and to be on display. And we have this beautiful bookcase. This is the bookcase that actually sat in this room back in the 1920s and 30s. It was belonged to Father Flanagan. When he moved out of the house in 1940, he gave everything away because he was getting all new furniture. So he gave this bookcase to Father Schmidt, our choir director. And then Father Schmidt used this here on campus all the way up to the 1970s when he left. And then eventually when he passed away, he donated it back to Boys Town. So we have the original bookcase back here in the house. We're so excited to have it. You can see the detailed work of it, some of the old carvings that were done. So we're very happy this is returned to the house, because gradually over the years, things start to return to us from the original home. And then if we come out back into the entry hall, we're going to come by and we have a family picture, Father's family. Picture of his mom and dad, Jonathan and Nora, and his brothers and sisters. That was taken here in Omaha. 2 sisters remained in Ireland, but by about 1912, this is the Father Flanagan family members living in the city of Omaha. And then we can come into Father's dining room. And here in the dining room, the furnishing actually was used by Father Flanagan. This is the furniture he used when he moved to the new rectory back in 1940. So that furniture was no longer needed. Father Peter one day said, why don't we move this up to the Father Flanagan house? So this is all the furniture that had been used by Father Flanagan from the 1940s. And as you can see, it's very heavy furniture, very well carved. He had a group of people that donated to him all the furnishings in his new home, and even the china and silver. You see, this was all donated to Boys Town by supporters and friends of Father Flanagan. And even this beautiful chandelier, this is the chandelier that was in his rectory down. We just toured that yesterday, and that was the chandelier that was in that residence. It was all moved up here too for safekeeping, so it stayed together as a set. And within this room, we have some special pictures. We have Father Flanagan's mom's picture, Honora, and then we have his father, John. And these were donated by Father Flanagan's great-nephew, Mr. Joe Flanagan, who lives down in Texas. He said these had always hung in the Flanagan family dining room. So we have copies of on display now. The original pictures are at the Hall of History, but these are the frames that we have here, the original frames. And then behind me, we have a picture of Father Flanagan. That again was a family photograph. This was taken about 1916, 1917, right about the time he was founding Boys Town. He was about 32 years old. This is a very rare photo. We don't have many photographs of Father Flanagan taken at that time. In this dining room, Father Flanagan entertained Babe Ruth was here to visit, J. Edgar Hoover was here to visit, other movie stars, politicians, and just ordinary friends and visitors would come and visit. So this dining room was used heavily throughout Father Flanagan's time when he lived here at Boys Town in this home. And then here in the kitchen, now again the kitchen is undergoing some restoration. We have a few cracks in the walls here, but this kitchen represents what it would look like back in the 1920s. We actually had Father Flanagan's housekeeper, a nun named Sister Bertel. She came and visited us back in the 1990s, and she said, I remember it being, this is much brighter than what I remember. But she would come and cook in this room for Father Flanagan and his family. And so she remembered being in this room for a long time. And then here we have the original refrigerator that was in place here. And then we have some of the items they used for doing laundry too. And so this room is really fascinating, especially for our younger visitors. They have no idea what majority of this material is. It gives them some sense of the hard work that was undertaken here to prepare the meals back in the day. And then right outside the doorway here, we come across to a special room. And this was Father Flanagan's sister's room, Miss Nellie. She was his housekeeper. She was his older sister. And then she lived with him to the day he died in 1948. And this was her special room. And she had her own kind of suite here with her restroom. And in this room, we have a pair of her glasses on the table. And then we have actually her sewing machine too. So this is some of the personal items we have from Miss Nellie, who people described as the angel of Boys Town because she dedicated her life to helping Father Flanagan and being here with them. And so this room is pretty much back the way it looked like when she would have lived here in the home. And now what we'll do is we can go upstairs and we'll see the upstairs bedrooms of the house. Because again, this is the original 1927 home. And as we come along the hallway, we have a gallery of photographs that we put up over the years, showing the show wagon and the different buildings that existed here at Boys Town during the 1920s, all the red brick buildings. These were all just copies of these are at the Hall of History too, and some of the famous people that Father Flanagan met, General MacArthur and the movie stars, Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy, who would have been in this home. They would have been walked right in the front door and been part of this home. And then before we go upstairs, we have a few pictures to help our guests understand where we're located. We're right here in the Father Flanagan house here. Next to us is our main building, which unfortunately is gone now. It's been replaced by a new school, and this is the playground. You can see a little statue here in the middle. And then up above is the entrance to Boys Town, and you can see the sign that a group of businessmen donated in 1925, and it says visitors always welcome. At the very top of the road is the house we're standing in. And to the right, if you notice, there's a plaque. And on the plaque it says all races, all creeds, all colors. So right at the entrance of Boys Town in 1925, Father Flanagan wanted people to understand all children are welcome to come live here and be part of the Boys Town community. And now we'll walk upstairs here, and we'll see the upstairs, and we'll get to see some of the Father's rooms and some of the extra rooms up here. And as we come upstairs, up on the landing here, we have another, what's kind of called a spiritual bouquet picture. And it's a picture of Father Flanagan, again with his mom and dad, John and Honora. They were great influences on him and guided him as a child. And he based a lot of his theories and concepts on the love that they gave him and his brothers and sisters. And then we have a few more pictures that we have on the hallway as we come up. And we're upstairs on the second floor landing now of the house. And this is an area where the bedrooms are located. And we can start here in Father's dressing room. This was Father's room that he would use in the morning when he'd get ready. We actually have his suitcase in the blanket that says Father Flanagan. So this was his dressing area. We have his tables here, his chest of drawers, his closets, and then this room had an extra sun porch. And this is sort of a room where Father could come out and he could do some writing and just enjoy the nice weather. Again, the house didn't have air conditioning, so he could open up all the windows and let the nice breeze blow in, and he could be up here working away. Next to the building, they're covered now with the blinds, was the original building. And Father Flanagan could be in these rooms and look out and watch what went on in the village. And one day he saw one of the boys throwing a ball against the new building. So he wrote a note saying, please don't do that. And that boy, all these years later, told me, he says, I still don't know if Father Flanagan knew I did that. Well, he could be up here and watch what went on, and that's what he wanted to do. He was always watching and making sure the kids were okay and making sure they're behaving appropriately. And then we have some of his missals that he had, some of his prayer books too, that we have on display here in the house. And then as we come across, we're going to kind of notice on some of the doors, you see a ghost of a number. Because eventually, when Father Flanagan lived in this home, and he left, it was turned into a dormitory. So first the Christian brothers and then various orders and nuns lived in these rooms. So each one had like a little number, like an apartment building. So eventually that's how these rooms were used. In the hallway here, we have a picture of Father graduating from college. Father Flanagan is right here in the front row. That's from Mount St. Mary's College in Baltimore, Maryland. And when he graduated from that college, that's the college that said he didn't have much of a future and he should go back and join his brother in Nebraska because he had too many ideas and concepts that were strange, and they were so desperate for a priest that he could go and live in Nebraska. So even at that time, he was discounted his ideas and views. Up here on the landing, we have our phone. And this was the phone for the home back in the 1920s. And you can see it would have been a party line phone. And we pointed out to our new boys and girls joining us. They're just amazed because everybody could listen up and down the line to all your phone calls. So that they couldn't believe that could happen. And this home was really modern for the day. It actually had 3 bathrooms. We had one downstairs for Miss Snelly. Father had one upstairs here. And then this was the one for the other people living in the home. So it had 3 indoor bathrooms back in the 1920s. And then we have a bedroom that Father Flanagan's nephew, Patrick Flanagan, used. Patrick came from Ireland and lived with Father Flanagan. And he stayed at Boys Town actually to the day he died. And he dedicated his life to working for Boys Town as the business manager of the home. And then we have a little guest room, and this was used by Father Flanagan's mother when she lived with him for a while, and then other guests and family members when they come and visit. And I'll point out too, all the quilts you're seeing throughout the house, these were all made by our Boys Town Mothers Guild. And when we get to the back of the home, you're going to see a whole nother collection. So every time you see a quilt, those are all handmade by our Mother Guild members. And up here on the landing area, we have a kind of a wall. Well, back in 1941, when Father left, they took down this wall and expanded, added a whole new west wing, sleeping quarters, for first the Christian brothers and then the nuns. So back in 1976, the home was turned back into a historic house. So that's why this was all put back in place. And we're going to go over now and see that. But I wanted to point out this banister was removed back in 1941. And when they were restoring the home in 1976, they said, does anyone know where the banister went to? And a longtime employee named Mr. Awatowski said, that's up at the barn. Well, by gosh, they went up to the barn, and here was the original dual post and spindles. Everything's still up in the barn. So they were all refinished and brought back down and put into the home. So we're very lucky that happened. And what we'll do now is we'll head over, and we can go and see the addition that was done. And as we come by, you're going to see this great big huge crucifix. That was traditional here on campus. That hung for many, many years. And one of the schools here on campus and the buildings. And now we have new schools here on campus, and so we have other crucifixes that hang there. And as we come downstairs, these steps here, we're going to come down back into the entryway of the house, and then we can head over to the back of the house. And again, back in the day, this was Father's residence. So the only people that were allowed to visit here were his friends, his family. The boys were never allowed to come into the home because this was his private residence. But back here, we're coming to like would have been a door. This would have been the screen door to the house. And many former boys tell us they used to come up to the screen door and knock on the door, and Miss Nellie, who would have been back here kind of by the kitchen area, she'd come out and give them a cookie. So they remember that. She was very kind to them that way. And back in 1927, we would have walked out to the back of the house, and again, this whole section was added back in 1941. We kind of have a little history of the house. The far panel shows like a one-car garage. That's what Father Flanagan lived in when he moved out here to campus from 1921 to 1926. One-car garage, modified, overrun by mice and bugs, and eventually someone donated the funds to build this home. And so then he moved into the house here and lived in the house with his sister, Miss Nellie, and Patrick Norton. And we have a picture of him up in his bedroom. Again, a very rare photograph. We have a picture of him holding the Oscar laying in his bed when the Oscar came in 1938 here in the house. Then in 1941, it was turned into a dormitory, first the Christian brothers and the nuns. You can see the sisters all lined up here on the steps. They lived here up to 1975. And then in 1976, for the bicentennial, the home was renovated into a historic house museum. And this is the images of its restoration. And the back part of the home really was used for offices and different uses. And finally, about 10, 15 years ago, they said, let's remodel it into public space. So we came in and we took down a lot of the walls and we created historical vignettes. So that's what these rooms represent. This one's dedicated to our Boys Town farm. It talks about how the kids would raise the crops and then produce the food and serve it in the dining hall. And it shows one of the tables from back in the 20s and 30s and pictures of the boys that would have sat at the table back at that time. And then we come back, we come into Father Flanagan's office. This is a recreation of his office from 1943. We picked the war era because that's when he was very active working with the war effort and working with the former boys. And in his office, he always had a huge selection of photographs. So this is just some of the photographs. These are all copies. The originals now are at the Hall of History. But many of these frames are the original frames that were in Father Flanagan's office. And you can see pictures of all these servicemen. These were former boys that would send their pictures to Father Flanagan. He hang them in his office. Just like any family member, he wanted his family members close to him. And over in the corner, you kind of see a dictaphone that was used by Father Flanagan. He'd pick up that little cone there and speak into it, and there'd be a little wax wheel, and it'd record his speeches and his letters, because he was going 24 hours a day practically writing and answering questions, especially during the war. Families would write to him needing advice and help. And within the room too, we have some other items that were given to Father. Some when he traveled around the world, we have a stein from Germany. We have some white porcelain from Korea. There's a lacquer bowl from Japan, and just all these unique items that would have been given to Father Flanagan when he traveled around. And on the wall again, photographs, frames created by the boys, and pictures, some of the awards he received from Variety Club International, just a wide variety of items and materials, things that would have been donated to Father Flanagan he would have collected here on campus. For our centennial, we actually created a time capsule. So in the corner, you kind of see there's a time capsule that 100 years from now, hopefully will be open. And then the centerpiece of this room is Father Flanagan's desk. And this is the desk the boys made for him. And from 1936 to 1939, it took the boys 3 years to create. And it has over 250,000 inlaid pieces of wood and like 36 different varieties of wood. And Father had that great sign created saying, made by the manual training class, and he had that proudly displayed on his desk to the day he died. And he used this desk to the day he died also. After that, it was put on display. And that is Father Flanagan's brown chair too, that he used. And this is famously where he had a drawer where he'd keep his candy. And after school, the younger kids could come up and get a piece of candy. So it's a beautiful piece of artwork created by the children, created for love for Father Flanagan. And he loved it to the day he died. And in Father's office too, you notice there's a dictionary. That's due to the fact that when Father Flanagan always wanted to increase his vocabulary, so he always kept a dictionary in his office, and every day he'd turn the page to a new word, and he would use that all day long. So that was just part of his increasing his vocabulary. And then we have some more pictures of famous supporters of Father Flanagan that he would have had in his office, from Joe Louis the boxer, and he had Gene Autry, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, just a whole variety of movie stars from the 20s and 30s and that were supporters of Father Flanagan and his work and what he did to help children here on campus. And the Vice President, Mr. Wallace, too. And then we can step and we can see the chapel here on campus that we recreated. It would have been the original chapel from 1923. And as people visit the house, they're going to notice what we do is we have kind of names for the different rooms in the house, and we have a picture of the original building it stood in, and then what the original room would look like, because this building is long gone now. So we tried to recreate what the rooms would look like. And so this little area we tried to recreate as a chapel, and these are the original pews from the 1920s that were used by the children here on campus. And we have a picture of the Virgin Mary. That's the original to Boys Town too. That was in the original chapel back in the 1920s also. And then up in the front we have these kneelers. These were created by the boys in the woodworking course, and along with the lector, the woodworking there, and then the candle holders were all done by the boys here as part of their restoration project in 1930s, 1940s. And we have Stations of the Cross, kind of representing the old Stations of the Cross too. And then we have some ceramic items too that were created by the kids here on campus. So this is kind of a really special little room that people can come in for special events. And now what we'll do is we'll go upstairs and we'll see the rooms upstairs for this part of the house. Because again, back in the 1940s, they took everything out in the front of the house. This was the only staircase into the home. So we'll go upstairs now and we can see these rooms. Because we tried to give our visitors some sense of the history of Boys Town with some of these spaces that we have here. And as we come upstairs, our first room we're going to come to is our classroom here at Boys Town. And this classroom kind of represents the classrooms that would have been here back in the 1920s and 1930s. And we have some of the desks the kids would have used back in that time. We have some of the original chalkboards, the lead chalkboards, and we have our desk. The actual desk the teacher sat on was made by the boys here on campus. They made one for each teacher. And again, there's one of those special boxes the boys made too. And then we have our flag. We always point that out to our children when they visit, our modern children. We said, what's different about that flag? And then you get some idea. It's got the 48 stars on it. And we have some pictures what the original classroom would look like. And we have pictures of Native American tribes here, because in the original classroom from the 1920s, Father Flanagan had pictures of Native Americans, so that's what we tried again to recreate what Father Flanagan would have had back in that time. And again, that's a picture of the original classroom from the 1920s that we're recreating. And then above it is the building that would have sat in that is now gone. And then this room, as we continue our tour, is what's called a cell. Because we spoke to the nuns that used to live here, the Cunegundas, the Franciscan sisters from Chicago. We said, what was your room like when you lived here at Boys Town? They said we had a bed and a dresser, and that's all they had in their room. So we tried to recreate this for our visitors to understand that's what this floor looked like. All these little rooms were the cells, and we had the Cunegundas Franciscan sisters, we had the Franciscan German sisters here, we had sisters in Notre Dame, we had different orders of nuns that come and served here at Boys Town for many, many years. We have some of the religious items that they have donated to us over the years when we visited the sisters. And then down our hallway here, as we come by, we have our Christmas room. Christmas is a big event at Boys Town. So this room is dedicated to the Christmas events at Boys Town. And what we have here in the room is a tree, and our tree is decorated with ornaments the boys would have made back in the 1950s. And so that was used for many, many years. The kids would create ornaments, and so when we were creating this tree, we wanted to use that. We have our train set in here because the boys used to have big events and decorate their cottages and have contests in the 50s and into the 60s. And we have some of the images on the wall of some of the pictures of the elaborate decorations they put up in their homes, because many of the children had never had Christmas before, and that's what we do at Boys Town today. At Christmas time, we go overboard, decorating and having special events for the children here on campus so they can understand what it's like to have a Christmas celebration. And all of it goes back to Father Flanagan and his ideas and concepts of making things open for the kids here on campus. And that shows Father in one of the dormitories passing out Christmas packages on Christmas morning, and so it was, again, very important to him that the kids have a good Christmas celebration. And as we step back here, we're going to come into a recreated dormitory. And again, these were been sleeping quarters for the sisters, and we took down all the walls to create this nice big open area so people could understand what one of our dormitories looked like. And you can see all the beds here that would have been in place. The original dormitories would have had 100 boys per bed. When we were creating this part of the home, about 10, 15 years ago, we went to the Omaha Mothers Guild and said, could you help us make a couple quilts? They said, couple quilts, Tom, we'll make you all quilts. So they had a huge project undertaken and created all these beautiful quilts that we have on display here. And they created even more that you can see throughout the house, and then they became a permanent group now, and they're still making quilts for the children here on campus. And upstairs here, we have a couple wooden cabinets that have survived over time. And this is one of the wooden cabinets. Every boy that lived here in the 20s and 30s had one of these cabinets to keep all their possessions in. And when they tore down the original building, they only kept a few. This one was at the print shop, and we had one that was actually at our plumbing shop. And so these were saved and brought up here to the house so visitors get some idea where the boys in the 20s and 30s would have kept their clothing in. And we have a picture here, a great image, showing this dormitory I was just talking about. This is all the quilts that you can see the Mothers Guild would have made. And again, above it is the building that this dormitory would have sat in. And then this is a little story someone wrote into Father Flanagan. How did children sleep at night? And Father wrote back this great story describing how there's a watchman that sits in the room with the boys and monitors them if they need any help, and then described how they each had their own little bed. And this is a very, very unique history of our Boys Town section. This allows guests to come and actually see what it was like in the 20s to live here. We have some little recognition of special people too. This is Miss Catherine Shields Dehaney. She's the lady that helped Father Flanagan rent our first home back in 1917, and she eventually worked for Father Flanagan until his death in 1948. So she was one of our first volunteers, our first workers to come and work here at Boys Town. She had great memories of Father Flanagan being here with the kids, so we wanted to recognize her as one of those early supporters and individuals who helped Father Flanagan.
Tom, do you want to explain why the dormitory is different than how Boys Town is today?
Today at Boys Town, our children live in family-style living units, and that came about in 1975. Because dormitories were good in their day, but children changed over the years, especially in the 1960s, and they needed more one-on-one attention and assistance. So that's why in 1975, Father Huck brought the Family Home Program here. And it's a world-renowned program. We have it duplicated across the United States by other children home programs, even around the world. And we're state-of-the-art care now for children. And it just shows how Boys Town evolves and changes. Because Father Flanagan often said, you must keep evolving and changing, meeting the needs of children and families. And that's what we still do at Boys Town today. And I want to thank you for joining me here. We walked through the house. You got to see all the rooms. Now I have a little goal for you to come and visit us this Christmas time and see the home decorated for Christmas. And if not at Christmas, you're welcome to come visit throughout the years here, because Boys Town is open for visitors year round. If you'd like to support Boys Town and continue the ministry of Father Flanagan, please go to boystown.org and learn how you can help. And I want to thank you today for joining us here, and we'll see you tomorrow for another History Week Facebook Live.